So the questions are these. How can we really activate the best of the private sector to meet the challenges of the real world? Is there a way to accelerate my career that doesn't involve boring online or classroom courses? And can I really impact people in the developing world with the skills that I have? Can I finally feel proud of what I know? Those are the questions, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Philippa White, and this is TIE Unearthed. Keep listening, and you can follow us on our journey as we show you how we're connecting the private sector with the social sector to make change. Hello everyone, Philippa White here, and welcome to episode 12 of TIE's podcast. Today I'm speaking with Parul Sheth, co-founder and executive director of Shaishav, a voluntary organization based in Gujarat, India. And Gujarat is the land of Gandhi. Hello Parul, it's lovely to have you with us today.
Hello Philippa, it's so nice to connect with you. Thank you so much for having me here.
It's so good. Great. Let me just bring to life you and Shaishav for our listeners. So Shaishav works with underprivileged children, such as child labor, non-school going children, slum children, tribal children, and girls. Now, Shaishav believes that children are change makers, and Parul drives the mission, development, public relations, and supervises the ongoing work that the organization does. She has worked as a trainer and facilitator at national and international levels on child rights issues, has fought to reduce child labor, child marriage, child abuse, child sexual abuse, and exploitation through the education, protection, and empowerment of children. Now, she holds a bachelor's degree in commerce and law and a master's in social work from the University of Bombay. And Parul is a Fulbright Humphrey Fellow and an Ashoka Fellow. So hello, Parul. It's just really great to have the opportunity to bring to life the super important work that you and Shaishav does.
Thank you for this opportunity, Philippa.
So what I'd really like to do is I'd love if you please, I obviously just gave a little bit of a background to what you do, but I can't do it justice without you actually telling people about it. So please, can you tell people about the story of why the organization was set up and what you do?
Sure. So I'm a very passionate child rights activist and co-founder of this organization called Shaishav. It means childhood. So my husband and myself are both Ashoka Fellows, and we both started this together. Shaishav means childhood, and we wanted to make sure that all children, especially the marginalized children, get all their rights and joys of childhood. And that is why we started Shaishav. And Shaishav is working with the various groups of children that Philippa mentioned, with different programs that we offer to children. Over the history of Shaishav, we have done so many programs, also change in strategy, and staff is changed. A lot of things have changed, but one thing that has always remained same, and that is the children have always remained at the center core of anything and everything that we do.
Mm-hmm. And how long ago did you and your husband set up Shaishav?
Yeah, so we set it up in 1992, and we are working at Bhavnagar since 1994. So we finished 26 years of our work and celebrated our silver jubilee in January.
Congratulations!
Yes.
That's fantastic. That's really fantastic. And what sparked the start of Shaishav for you and your husband? What was the instigator?
So one thing is that we love children. We believe that if we want to bring any change in the world, we need to begin with children. And any problem that lies today in the world, if you want to really solve any problem, be it terrorism, be it global warming, environment crisis, or war, or anything, you need to begin the change starts happening from childhood. So the intervention starts when we work with children, and that is something that has really motivated us. And we begin with working with child labor, because India has the highest number of child labor. And when we began the work, we did one survey of child labor and identified 12,813 child labor working in 106 different occupation from the city of Bhavnagar alone. And that's why that became the finding of that survey became the premises to build our strategies and programs. So we started community education centers in the communities where we identified the highest number of child labor. Then when we motivated children and their parents to go to school, and first time when we enrolled 78 children to school in 1996, we started multi-purpose mobile school program, because in our survey we found that out of this almost 13,000 children, 68% children never ever went to school. And of the 32% who went, 79% dropped out before they completed 7th grade. So we started working in the government schools, and while working in the schools and community, as Philippa mentioned earlier, we believe that children are not beneficiaries or service seekers, they are the rights holders and the change makers. So we formed the community in communities and schools, children's committees, and started providing training. And when the children learnt about their rights, they decided to form their own children's collective called Bal Sena, literally means children's collective or children's army. And when they grew up, they also formed the youth collective. So that's how we start. We are also running child helpline, which is 24/7 children helpline, working with children who are in need of care and protection. We are also providing child rights resource and training center, and very recently we have launched a new program about which I'm going to talk about it little later.
Great. Wow. I mean, your organization is so inspirational, and every time I speak to you, Parul, I just get covered in goosebumps. I find your work just so incredible. Now, we worked together in 2017, and I just wondered maybe you could tell our listeners about your experience with TIE, and perhaps a story that stands out with regards to the impact of our work with you.
Oh, I can never forget it. In fact, when I was thinking about it before our call, I was thinking so much about Emma, it was a great gift to us, from TIE. And Emma came with so much passion and commitment and so many ideas. And she was so hardworking that, she was there for about a month. But when I think about the contribution that she made to us, Saishav, it is incredible. Like, she helped us prepare the communication policy. She designed the logo and everything, letterhead, PowerPoint presentation. But moreover, she helped us make a film which gives the message about the impact of our work. She helped us get a very renowned photographer to do the photos.
Yes.
And she helped us design our website. And so many things, like, when I think about it, that how much she could manage to do just in that 1 month. It is incredible. I mean, it is unimaginable. And besides that, she has become such a good friend, that even...
So you're still in touch?
Oh, very much. She got 2 boys. So whatever happens in her life, we know about it. When I went to UK in 2 years ago, I met her first son also, and so great to meet her again. And we are very much in touch, and she still supports, contributes regularly through our global giving also. And she's an incredible friend. But I tell you one thing.
That's great.
In Saishav, someone who came to Saishav has said that, there is some manufacturing defect in Shaishav. That the doors open only one way. You can only get in. You can't get out. So that has happened to Emma also. And all to all.
Oh, that's a great thing to be.
Yeah. So that happens to all our volunteers. So we really love all our volunteers and the contribution that they've done.
Well, you also touch other people's lives in a very profound way. So it doesn't, it's not just one-sided. It certainly is a win-win for everyone.
Yes.
Now, Parul, can you tell us about the challenges that you face in your part of the world? I mean, I touched on it, obviously, in the introduction, and then when you talked about many of the challenges that you all face in India due to just the poverty and the children and what they face. But I just wonder, can you tell our listeners something that they might not know about the challenges in your part of the world?
Yeah, children are not priority. We see children, but we don't listen to them. And children are, people say that they care, but we don't see it happening. I tell you that in India, there are about 38 to 40% children. But out of the total budget for children, it is about 4%. So you can see that, for 40% population, our priority, who are supposed to be the topmost priority, we get only 4% budget for them. The whole education system is very, very highly unequal. There are so many layers. The rich children go to very high-end private schools, and as the grade goes down, then the most poor and marginalized children go to the government schools. All the teachers in the government school, almost everywhere, at least in Gujarat, are very, very highly qualified. But the education level and the quality of education is pathetic, very, very poor. The protection issues like child marriage, child labor, child trafficking, child sexual abuse, corporal punishment, you name it, like all forms of child abuse are very, very high. And like inequality is the biggest threat. Environmental issues.
Yeah.
People are divided based on basis of caste and religion and language and class and so many ways. And that percolates even among children. So that is like, the gender discrimination is extremely high. So there are so many issues and that, the children are facing. The stress of education is so high. Now due to COVID, in the education, everything has gone online because all the schools are closed from March until now. And I don't know how long it is going to remain closed. And everything.
So that's something I actually wanted to ask, because I think of you and Shaishav, gosh, so often when I think of how various different communities and people and countries are affected by COVID. And please, actually, can you bring to life how you and your work has been impacted by COVID? Because I'm sure it's been really impacted by this pandemic.
Yeah, because as I said, all schools are closed, and so we are not able to get in touch with our children. And we have started working in communities and the villages where with the children in very small groups by maintaining all the protocols and all the care that we need to take. But everything is moved, shifted to online education. But the children with whom we are working, and not only our children, all over the country, more than 75 to 80% children don't have access to internet and mobile and smartphone. And so they can't continue their education. It is very in the family, typically there is one phone and usually it is with the father. Father goes to work, comes back in the evening. So if there are some messages, then there are 3 siblings or 4 siblings, they have to share the time on the mobile. So it is the in real sense, it is so difficult. And now earlier health was one of the factors which was pushing the people down. It is still number 1 below the poverty line they were pushing. And now it is also additionally education, because people are selling their animals to buy smartphone for the kids. So it is becoming really crazy, and still the internet issues are so high that children don't have internet. They walk and walk to get internet somewhere. And the cases of child abuse, like child labor, child trafficking, child marriage, child sexual abuse, domestic violence, etc., are really increasing like an alarming rate during the pandemic. The economic pressure is so high that children are forced to start working with the parents. So there are so many issues that is coming up because of the COVID. We are trying to do our bit in whatever way. We did some rehabilitation, relief work by distributing ration kits. We prepare very innovative activity resource kit, and we distribute it to all the children with whom we work. And our team goes there and door to door and give them guidance and support. But it is with very limited number of children, not many children. So many children are out of this whole support system. So that is very bad.
Really, I've honestly, even just this topic, I have so many questions for you, and we don't have enough time. I feel like I need to call you again and have another conversation, because we're facing the similar things in Brazil. Schools apparently are going to be opening up in November, but there's just so many challenges around all of this, and what the long-term impact is going to be on a generation of children. The impact, as we know, it's so important to educate girls before the age of 12. So many of these countries that are not able to do that, and then the chances of these young people going back to school after they've been working in the family, and the families just don't see the value anymore. There's a lot of those types of conversations happening here, and the impact that's going to happen or have, on
it is,
on the country.
Our work is pushed back to 20, 30 years back. All the movements, women's movement, child rights movement, everyone, labor movement, everything is gone back. It's really very bad.
20 to 30 years. That's really bad. Gosh. So, bringing to the next question that I have for you, that maybe is related or maybe not, but what keeps you up at night worrying at the moment? But also, I'd love to know what gives you hope.
So, as I said, the present environment, socio-economic, political, cultural, in India and across the globe is really kind of, very, very much worrying, because, we are trying to divide people on so many levels, not only gender, caste, class, so many ways. And the situation at large, the environment issues are so much it's alarmingly worrying. And our children, we are telling them, okay, education is very powerful, you need to study. And they are motivated to study, and they somehow struggle to study. But our education system is so bad that what they get at the end of it, they don't get job, they don't get any skills to be independent. And ultimately, they end up, with very, very bad, challenging situation. So we are giving them wings, but when they start flying, we don't know what are they going to encounter with. So that is something very much worrying for me. And I feel like, our education system is something that is leading them to more frustration. So, of course, our children, we give them life skills and values. That is why they somehow manage to sail through this situation. And what makes me very hopeful is that when the children pass through such empowerment process, they can overcome all these challenges somehow. And that is my hope, that children, anything, any change that you want to do, we will have to begin with children, as I said earlier. And if that strategy, like the way we are doing right now, so I can see so many lives of children are transformed, and that gives me a lot of sense of fulfillment and contentment, because it is very very fulfilling.
I can imagine. Can you? I mean, This isn't something that I've asked you to prepare for, but I just wonder, just quickly, is there a story of somebody, a child that you have worked with, and you've seen the transformation of that child? Can you bring to life a story that talks about that transformation and where that child is now, due to the work that you've done?
So many stories. Oh my God. I can tell you for.
Is there one? I can imagine.
Okay, I tell you one that comes up to my mind right now. There was this one girl. She joined our Bal Sena from her school when she was in, I think, 6th or 7th grade. And that time she was part of our children's collective, not in leadership, but she was active. And then we didn't realize, but she dropped out of the school. But because she didn't go to school, she had a lot more time, free time, because she doesn't have to go to school, no tuition. So she became very active in Bal Sena and participated in all activities and all programs. So she became very good leader in Bal Sena. And then she moved up, and then she contested the election for Bal Sena president, which is the topmost position in Bal Sena. Bal Sena is our children's collective. And then people, when she was giving her electoral speech, children asked her that, in our Bal Sena we talk about that children have the right to education. You are not studying yourself, and how will you motivate others? And that really stuck her. So she said, yes, I promise that whether I am elected or not, I will continue my education. And then she really kept her promise. She got elected, of course, but she continued, and with our help, she appeared directly for the 10th grade exam as an external student and passed it in the first attempt. And then then she wanted to continue her education, and her family did not allow her. But her friends and our team somehow managed to convince her, and they admitted her in a government school. Some other friends gave her uniform, and some others gave her, like books and everything. So she would come to office saying that I'm going to Saishav, and she would actually come and wear uniform and go to school, then come back to office, change uniform and go back to home. Like that, she continued for a month or more. And then, our team was saying that you can't continue like this. You have to tell, you cannot keep lying with the family. So then I talked to her and I asked her, actually I knew that, when she comes from a family where when she was very young, she got engaged. And because her fiancé was, he did not study, or this girl was not allowed to study further. But she already has done a crime of passing 10th grade, which was already higher than her fiancé. Now she cannot study anything more. So then I asked her, why you don't want to continue your education? She didn't say anything. Then I said, do you think you have the right to study? She said, yes. Do you want to study? She said, yes. Then I said, you know about Gandhi's story, when there is any pressure, when there is any injustice, what would he do? He said he will go on fast. I said, okay, you can also go on fast. Then she started like very puzzled. She looked at me. Then she said, look, like I said, but fasting is not easy. No? Once you take up, you can't give up. So, you can, first I said, we will all support you in convincing your parents. Then she looked at me like she didn't believe me. Then I said, but fasting is not easy. I said, have you ever remained hungry? She said, yeah, sometimes, but not much. So then I said, yeah, you can die also if you continue your fast. But you know what? I said, if you die, I will be very happy. And she was like, looking at me like so puzzled. And I said, I will celebrate your death. I will tell the whole world that, this girl wanted to study and this entire society did not allow her to study. And so far there are so many martyrs who died for so many reasons, but you will be the first martyr who will die for education. So I will put your statue in middle of the whole city and say that this girl died because she wanted to study. And I said, because of that, so many girls will get motivation, and they will also get studies, and I will celebrate it. So she was just, I kept on saying like that, and she kept on looking at me. She didn't say anything. She went home. She came back next day with the uniform and said, I told my parents I'm going to continue my education. And then she finished her 12th grade. Then she was in the second year of, then she took admission in the college. Means externally, but she went to college. And then she was in the second year of college. She got married to the same guy. Okay, because there was no other choice for her, but she got married to the same guy. But she told her in-laws that I'm going to continue my education. And she completed her graduation. Then she had a baby. And thereafter she started her post-graduation. And now she finished her Master of Social Work.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's really great. Now, listen, we are going to be launching our, we have launched our TIE Accelerator program. We're in the middle of a project right now, which we're really excited about. And just for people who don't know what it is, basically we're connecting professionals around the world who are, and we pull together a team of people, and they work to support an organization like yours, in order to obviously grow as individuals, to be able to push their brains and step out of their comfort zone and work with using their skills to support organizations in a way that they probably haven't been able to do before, but also impacting organizations like yours. And so I just wanted to know what you hope to get out of this TIE Accelerator experience and how you hope we can.
Yeah, so I'm going to share about the one very, very innovative and exciting project that we have launched recently. Not very recently, but yeah, comparatively it is it's very new. And for that, and see, our whole aim is that we want to make the organization sustainable. So me and my husband are already making the succession plan and hand it over to the next generation. And for that, to make this organization more sustainable, we want to create the whole process more system driven, and also make financially sustainable. So if we can get some fellows who can help us create those kind of strategies and help us make it more sustainable, and also communicate what we are doing. Sometimes what we do is really very valuable, but maybe we don't have that expertise and communication expert who can communicate very effectively what we do. So if someone can help us frame it to share this our impact of our work to different stakeholders, like individual donors, to companies, to foundations, so various level. So that would be really a great support for us.
Great. Well, we are still working out exactly when it will be, but we will obviously let you know as soon as we know. But I'm really looking forward to working with all of you again. As you know, I'm a big supporter of your work. So as we wrap this up, just because we're getting to the end of the podcast, but before we do finish, I wondered if you could tell our listeners what you're working on at the moment that you think they would find interesting, or that I haven't asked you that you'd like to say.
So as what I said last, that when we celebrated our silver jubilee and completed 25 years, we did a lot of introspections about our major learnings and what do we want to take the next step forward. So we came up with this very innovative project, what we call Aranyak. Aranyak is an Indian name, and it means the people living in the forest. So it is, we want to work in the tribal areas with very marginalized communities of tribals, and we want to create an open learning space where children are the ones who will decide what they want to learn, when they want to learn, at the pace they want to learn, from whom they want to learn, and it will be really very self-paced, self-designed learning model. So that right now the way the schools, the children are dependent on the schools and the teachers and the books. And because in that absence, they can't learn. Is it their learning is stopped? But we want to create an alternative where children decide, they learn the way. We want to teach them how to learn, and they will find the way to learn. So that is one thing that we want to do. But also this whole place should be in very much environment or eco-friendly, and where we will be like living, all of us will be living together, growing our food through organic farming, cooking together, eating together, living together with sociocracy manner, where children will decide what they want to learn. And also it will be like, using all the appropriate technology, living very simple and sustainable life, and providing them the vocational training so that they don't have to work, like if in India at the time of pandemic, of the situation of migrant worker, that they had to walk so much and so many challenges. But if they find appropriate employment and livelihood just in the villages and where they are living, how can they live more independent life? So they are not pushed out of the villages. So we think that, this for the COVID and the environment larger situation, this could be the most viable alternative. And we feel it more and more strongly after the COVID experience, that this is the most powerful alternative at the moment. So that is what we want to now develop and put all our energy in. And for that we need all the financial and other support. And secondly, when Falgun and I step back from the day-to-day working, we want to contribute our experience and learning to the wider child rights movement by sharing our learning with other organizations, like-minded organizations, which are working on the grassroots level, and create this whole, like this child rights movement and child participatory movement at the state and national level, and create a cadre of grassroots child rights activists who can work with children. So, train the cadre of people who can do this work really passionately and committedly. So that is what we want to do, and we want to put our energy into. For all of that, we need the support of, the people from across the globe who are also passionate and committed with this idea.
Good. Well, I will put your website and contact details in the bio, so that for anyone who is interested in learning more, they can get in touch. And hopefully this podcast gets out to more people that didn't know about you before, but hopefully now do. So thank you for joining us. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm so pleased that you guys are in our lives, because I really do get so inspired every time I speak to you, Parul.
Thank you so much, Philippa, for giving me this opportunity to connect with so many people across the globe, and opportunity to get new friends and supporters.
Great. Listen, look forward to working with you.
Yes, we
soon.
also look forward.
Okay, take care, Parul.
You too. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Take care. Hey everyone, this is Philippa again. So this is your chance to get involved with TIE. We have 3 absolutely amazing virtual opportunities available, all rooted in connecting the private sector with the social sector to make change. TIE has never been more necessary than right now. So if you're looking for life-changing leadership development opportunities for your employees, and you want your company to impact the world, we've got you covered. If you're looking to step out of your comfort zone and use your skills to make a difference, and keen to meet other like-minded professionals with similar values, then our TIE Accelerator program is for you. There are so many options, so I urge you to get in touch. Go to theinternationalexchange.co.uk for more information, or just shoot us an email. Better companies, better leaders, better world.